So the members of Future California Elections and partners have been working along with the Office of the Secretary of State to improve California's online voter registration system and promote its use. And we've been working with members like the Language Accessibility Advisory Committee, Disability Rights California, to really strengthen the system that is now up and ready to go on the Secretary of State's site. As I mentioned, we had a webinar in May just before the June primary and had great feedback from participants. We therefore wanted to provide another opportunity to share important information about California's relatively new online voter registration system just in time for National Voter Registration Day on September 23rd and before California's voter registration deadline on October 20th. Today's webinar is being recorded, and it will provide an overview of California's online voter registration system, including the languages that are now available and the accessibility features of that system. We will also learn about the unique feature of the California system, which allows for third-party integration. And finally, we will close by discussing strategies for using online voter registration in your community outreach efforts. So let's get started. And again, as people are joining, I'm just reminding everyone to please mute their telephone lines to allow for better sound quality during presentations. So our first speaker will be Jennie Bretschneider with the Office of the Secretary of State. Jennie is Assistant Chief Deputy Secretary of State and served as Project Director for the California Online Voter Registration Redesign Project. She also oversees National Voter Registration Act activities in California and the Secretary of State's Post-Election Audit Pilot Program. Thank you, Jennie, for joining us today.
Thank you, Astrid, and thank you to the Future of California Elections for hosting this webinar, and to Doug Chapin and Astrid, who has been spending a lot of time this year gathering groups together to promote our California online voter registration website. If we could go to my first slide, I will get started. So why did the Secretary of State redesign the California online voter registration website? I have to take a minute and take us back to 2011 when we wrote a grant to the federal government, to the Federal Voting Assistance Program, and we also worked on a bill to give us the authority to create online voter registration in California. That grant was for $500,000, and we found out in January 2012 that we got the award. So we had the green light, but we only had 9 months to build the system. And so from January 2012 to September, we entered into contracts with the Department of Motor Vehicles to get the signature electronically, and with the EMS vendors, which are the election management system vendors for the 58 counties in California. We designed the system, we built the system, and we tested it. We went to production all within that 9 months, and so we went into production and released the public website in September, about a month before the online voter registration deadline for that year, which was October 22nd. So in that 4-week period, it was a great success. We had great promotion from groups like yours, and about 1 million people, well, about 1 million applications came in during that period. So online voter registration applications were about 40% of all applications to register to vote that year. That was a really important election year for California because we had Prop 30 on the ballot, which was to raise sales tax and increase high income tax levels so that we could avoid even deeper cuts to our budget and get California back on track financially. And of course that passed. And so that was the project in 2011 to build the website for the first time was a really big success. But at the time, we knew here at the Secretary of State's office that there were things we wanted to do with that website that we weren't able to do in that short period of time with that grant funding. And so we decided a year later in 2013 to rebuild the website from scratch and work primarily on making it accessible for people with all kinds of disabilities and providing that website in 10 different languages. So when we first built it, we had English and Spanish, and we decided to build it in a version of it in all 10 different languages that are required under the Voting Rights Act in California. We also wanted to optimize it for mobile devices because so many young people use their phone or they use a tablet to do business and to interact socially, and so we knew we had to optimize this for mobile devices. We also wanted to create a feature that could be used by organizations like yours, community-based organizations, but also government agencies, to post information to our website. That is, if people go to third-party websites and become a member, or they're getting services from a third-party organization that has a website, then when they come to our online voter registration website, that data can be pre-populated onto our form so that basic data like name and address don't have to be entered twice. So we created that feature with this redesign as well, and we'll talk more about that. We also wanted to be able to track and report online voter registration applications that are coming from our many, many National Voter Registration Act agencies. There are hundreds of agencies, government agencies in California that have to offer voter registration under the NVRA, and we wanted to be able to track and report that to the federal government. Also created some additional functionality for the counties that they asked for, and in general, we have
Who?
Great Nation Church.
I'm going to stop speaking for just a minute.
I can hear you. Oh.
So we also
Your telephone line? Thank you.
We also improved the way the website looks and feels so that when we ask people for information, it's clear what we're asking for, and we get better data entry from applicants. And we improved the overall usability. Let's go to the next slide. So how did we improve accessibility? Well, this was a really big experiment for us at the Secretary of State's office. What we decided to do is bring in a brand new organization, the California State University Accessible Technology Initiative, and we have Sue Cullen here today to talk to you about their role in this rebuild. But we brought them in as a consultant on accessibility during design, build, and test so that they could help us actually design it, and during the build give us iterative help to improve the website. And then also during the test, they tested it for us. We did the same thing with our voting, with our Disability Advisory Committee, our VAC, so that we could get input from groups, and some of them are on the call today, I'm sure, but to get input from people with disabilities who are out in our communities so that they can come in during design and build and test and really see the website before we go live and make sure that it meets their needs. The standards that we set for the accessibility are here. You're seeing them on the screen, and Sue's going to talk more about them. And of course, we built this new website to meet all 5 different types of disabilities that there are. Let's go to the next slide. So how did we vet the new language versions? Well, we took the same approach here. And again, this was something a little bit new. I mean, when we do translations at the Secretary of State's office, we of course have to translate the voter information guide. There are many things that we translate into other languages in some parts of our website as well. And we always use experts from our counties, from our county elections divisions, and we have, of course, a translation vendor who helps us with those translations. But we decided this time to bring in also people from a Language of Accessibility Advisory Committee, and these are representatives from community-based organizations around the state. Have them come in early and look at the early translations coming back from our vendor and give us input on that and help us improve that so that before we go live with the website, we've actually vetted those translations with the communities and make sure that they are good. And that's a process that we're going to continue doing, I think, for other things that we do. So if you see that review cycle here, we had the translations come back from the vendor to us. We shared them with our reviewers out in the communities, and then those input came back and we gave that to our vendor to review and give us a final answer on. Let's go to the next slide. So what's the new cover post function? Well, this is what I mentioned before, and I think Dominic from Rock the Vote is going to talk more about it. Rock the Vote was our first organization to partner with us and build the technology on their end, and we built the technology on our end to be able to accept data from third-party websites with the applicant's consent, of course, to have name and address and other basic information pre-populate our form so that it doesn't, the form now when you use it takes about 5 minutes to register to vote. With this pre-population, we think it's around 2 to 3 minutes. So this really makes it easier and faster to register to vote, and of course the goal is to get more people registered and voting, and we think this really helps a lot. And of course, if you want to become a posting entity, you're going to need to enter into a contract with us. that makes you meet certain privacy and security requirements and gives you the technical requirements you need to build on your end. We have 3 different organizations right now that we're working with this week that are working to become hosting entities for this November, and we're hoping to have many more in the future, including government agencies that serve the public as well. Let's go to the next website, next page. How is the cover redesign more user-friendly? Well, there are many, many things we did. I mean, we really did go back to scratch, and we really thought about, well, what makes it easy to fill out a form on a website? What do people want to see? And the original website we built in 2012 had 19 different screens. And this website that we now have has 5. It's basically a 5-step process. And there's a nice bar across the top that tells you which step you're on. The form itself, where you fill out your information, is 2 pages, and so it's very easy to go through. We've got help links on the footer of every page so that people can click on information if they have a disability and they need to learn more about using accessible tools on the website. We have our 800 number on every page. We've got very plain English that we're using. We think it's about a 5th grade level for everything except for the statutory disclosures that are in certain places, and we don't have the ability to change that language. We grouped the questions together logically so that we're asking for things that go together in the same location on the website, which we think really helps people understand where they are and what needs to be done. We also we keep certain fields hidden until they're needed so that when you're looking at the form the first time, it doesn't look onerous. So for example, when you are filling out your residence address, you don't see all the other options for addresses that you could fill out unless you're checking a box that says, well, I have a mailing address that's different, or I have a prior address because I was registered before. Those things pop up as needed. And that's a really nice feature because I think sometimes when you look at a very long form, and you see all the places you could be filling out information, it's a turnoff. And so we want to get more people registering to vote and keep that form as simple as possible. And again, we did optimize it for mobile devices. So when you go on, you should be able to see that it works really well on a phone as well. Let's go to the next page. And I'm moving kind of quickly because I know we're each trying to keep to 10 minutes here so that we have time for questions. What's coming next? So VoteCal is our statewide voter registration system that we are building right now. It's scheduled to be ready in 2015, 2016. It's not just a database statewide of all the people who are registered to vote. It's more than that. It's going to have a new online voter registration website that's going to be built based on the website we have now. So it's going to have all that same functionality we have now in all the language versions. It's going to have a voter registration status lookup so that you can go on one website at the Secretary of State's office and look up whether you're registered to vote, where you're registered to vote. Right now, counties throughout the state have different tools for looking at voter registration, and they have numbers you can call to find out, but this will be one central location. It's also supposed to give you the chance to opt in or opt out of a paper voter information guide. So in the future, the goal is to really go paperless for people who want to go paperless. It's going to have a polling place lookup so you can find out where you need to vote. And also a vote by mail provisional ballot status lookup. And that means that once you vote by mail or once you vote a provisional ballot, you'll be able to look up and see whether your ballot actually got counted. And then, of course, the reason we're building this new statewide voting system is because it's required under federal law so that we can have more uniformity and synchronization throughout the state in terms of when people register in a certain county, that all the counties get instant notice of that and can maintain better rolls so that our voter rolls around the state are more up to date. We think that the new system that's coming in 2016 might actually simplify things like when you move. Right now, when you move outside your county, you've got to re-register to vote. We hope that the new system will allow for changes in the laws to make moving easier so that you can simply update your registration on the website rather than have to re-register completely. So this last slide is just my contact information. You're welcome to call me anytime if you have questions about the system. Happy to help groups who are interested in doing outreach. Before I stop, I just want to say a big thank you to all the groups out there that are participating in this webinar today. We know that you do really important work in your communities, and a lot of times that work is not related to civic engagement. It's related to getting people in your community the services they need. And so we thank you for adding civic engagement to what you do. certainly today's webinar is supposed to be some help in terms of finding out different ways you can promote online voter registration. But the bottom line is your groups can do this kind of outreach and promotion about voting better than we can in government, because you're in your local community, you're working with people, you understand their needs and their concerns, and you can better tie in how voting can help make changes in their lives that meet those needs and concerns. And so we really appreciate the work you do, and thank you so much. And I'm going to hand this off now to Sue.
Great. Thank you, Jennie, for that. So our next speaker is Sue Keller, and Sue is the Program Manager for Cal State Northridge Universal Design Center and the CSU Accessible Technology Program Manager. Sue actually did much of the testing for the accessibility features of the COVR tool herself. So thank you, Sue, for joining us today.
Thank you. And the team at the Universal Design Center, as well as the Accessible Technology Network, includes experts across 23 campuses. And because we are on university campuses, we also have the privilege of interacting with student paraprofessionals that do some of the testing as well. You can go to the next slide. The Accessible Technology Network at the CSU was born out of the original Accessible Technology Initiative. It does, as I said, span 23 campuses, and we bring together the expertise across these campuses, and that includes currently 7 different members from 7 different campuses, and of course the Chancellor's Office and outside experts as needed. And in this project we worked with Lucy Greco, who did some of the additional screen reader testing. We basically provide accessibility evaluation services to the entire system and outside entities as well. And this is the second time we've worked with a state agency. We've had the privilege of working with now the Secretary of State and Jennie's team on this project, and it's been quite exciting. And we're looking forward to additional future work. And if you have any questions about our network, you can contact us at ati@calstate.edu. So if you go to the next slide, thank you. Basically, we work to support cultural change. So at the Universal Design Center, as well as the CSU AT Network, we're working to blend accessibility standards and usability principles together so that we can create technology that's usable for everyone. We want to design in accessibility up front. We don't want it to be an afterthought. We want to integrate accessibility knowledge into the expected skill set of everyone on staff. That means that there isn't this specialized group of people that can only address this issue. We want to make that broad so that everyone brings it to their everyday work life. So if you're a web developer, you're actually knowing how to do accessible coding. And basically accessibility is a shared responsibility. It's not only a shared responsibility across our campuses, but across all your organizations as well. We're basing this on universal design principles, which means it's an intentional approach to design. It anticipates a variety of needs. It broadens the usability to the public. It's more economical. You don't have to keep going back to your code and fixing things later. And it respects human diversity. The image we're looking at is a series of images, graphics of people, and in this with centric circles around them. And in the center is an able-bodied person. And as we move out from the center, there's people from different cultures, different physical abilities, different cognitive abilities, people that are elderly, people with temporary disabilities. Our approach with universal design is to flip this model or integrate it so that the center is actually respecting everyone rather than kind of building from what you might call able-bodied out. We're valuing everyone's diversity and knowing that that's important as you build technology to make it accessible for everyone. We can go to the next slide. So in this effort, we did a collaborative design approach. As I said, we blend accessibility and usability standards. And as Jennie mentioned, some of the standards were the Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act. I'm sure some of you are very familiar with that. And WCAG 2.0. But very importantly, we looked at cross-browser compatibility. So we looked at multiple browsers. Assistive technology can function different in different browsers. So you want to have the best experience for everyone. We looked at different operating systems because that also plays into the end user experience. And of course we looked at assistive technology. Then we made recommendations at each phase with the team, and we were privileged to work with the Secretary of State's team on this. And we addressed usability and of course the technical aspects of accessibility. So standards conformance and assistive technology testing were all included. And it was an iterative process throughout the entire implementation. Next slide. A few of the interesting things that we worked to improve as a team, a collaborative team, was to provide full support to keyboard users. That's a very basic element to accessibility that allows a lot of different type of users to navigate your system. You could be using assistive technology, or you could simply be having limited use of a dexterity so that you can't use the mouse, for example. We also worked to make sure that the input controls were properly labeled with descriptive text and that the error handling messages were clear and concise. And this means that for everybody who uses the system, if we're filling out a form and we fill it out wrong, incorrectly, we want to make sure that we know that as we go through the process. And so we worked on those messages coming up at the right time when you needed them and not cluttering the screen sort of later. So that helped everybody know when they missed a form element that they needed to fill out. We did work to use accessible rich or ARIA, accessible rich internet applications. And I know not everyone on the call is aware of different coding things, but think of it as coding that helps relate the questions and the answer that you're giving to any text around it that is informative to that process. We also looked at structural markup, what those of us that are using our vision or have the use of our vision might think of as the bolded large headers and the chunks of data on a website. Structural markup can help organize that data, and the headings then are coded so that you can navigate by headers as somebody with vision might kind of scan the page to look at the large heading elements. And that helps logically group your questions and streamline your navigation process. This also allows consistent layout and navigation across the pages. So as Jennie mentioned, that things come up on the screen as you continue through the form. You're not overwhelmed with all of it at once. And then that consistent way you navigate through the page is helpful to end users so that it's more user-friendly, so to speak. Also, the system allows you to change the font size and colors of the website. Not all of us view color and visual perception the same way. So cascading style sheets is a way that people can change that on a web page, and we made sure that was opened up so that users could make those changes. For example, some people are colorblind, so they might need to see, they might only see the page in shades of, so to speak, tan or gray. So you want to make sure that the elements are obvious, things that will draw the attention to the eye because they're red on the page for those that can see it, might have an asterisk or something near it so that people know that, okay, draw your attention here, this is a required field, for example. Those are some of the highlights. And I'm certainly open to questions when we get to that part. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue, for sharing all that with us. Sounds like great work. Our next speaker is Dominic Roll. He's with Rock the Vote, and Dominic is the Director of Strategic Partnerships. He is responsible for engaging, coordinating, and building relationships with all of Rock the Vote's partner organizations to advance its goal of registering and mobilizing millions of young people to vote. Thanks, Dominic, for joining us.
Thank you to the whole FOSS community for having me. Rock the Vote is very excited and pleased to be part of this online voter registration conversation. As Jennie mentioned, Rock the Vote does have an online voter registration tool and is an approved entity to the California Secretary of State website. So today I'm going to spend my time talking about kind of what the tool is, the features, what it does, how you all can get your own version, and then answer any questions you guys have about how the integration with California works. But first, I think I'll take a step back and start off with a little bit of history just as context. We often get the question at Rock the Vote is, of all organizations, why does Rock the Vote have an online voter registration tool? And the answer is that we have always tried to engage young people where they are. And in the last several years, increasingly, that is online. So starting in 2008, we built out an online voter registration tool and also made it available to everyone for free. I want to echo one thing that Jennie said, is I think there's real kind of power, potential, and proven impact in community and nonprofit organizations' abilities to kind of organize their communities. And so we absolutely wanted to get this tool into all of your hands in addition to many thousands of others. So that was always a priority for us. And again, still kind of doing that today. I think, Doug, next slide. Let's see what's there. Right, so here's the voter registration tool. On the front page, I'll just point you to the language button. When user first comes on to the voter registration tool, they can choose their languages. It's available in 13, and I'll walk you through the how that works a little bit later. I just want to point that out because that'll be a big piece of how the integration works with California. On the next slide, I'll just show you guys a map of what online voter registration looks like across the country. Obviously, a lot of states are thinking through how to move their registration processes online. The gray states are all those that have implemented that. Not many have yet allowed Rock the Vote to be a posted entity. We're very grateful for California's leadership in that regard. We think it's a very valuable user experience to be able to come in through organizations and brands that you know and trust, and to start the voter registration process and to be able to complete it in a seamless way. So many hat tips and thank yous to Jennie and her team for making that a possibility in California. We think that's a tremendous value add. For the user, what that means is when they start on Rock the Vote's tool, they will fill in all of their information, so their name, their birthday, their phone number, everything that they would need for voter registration. And we actually seamlessly pass that over to the California Secretary of State process. It's a very kind of technical thing that I won't go into, but essentially users will flip over. As Jennie mentioned, their form will be pre-populated with the exception of one or two pieces of data. So they will have the opportunity to re-enter their email address to make sure that they put it in correctly, to put in their driver's license number so that the DMV, I believe, can pull in their signature. Make sure that they're in the database, and then also we'll have the opportunity, I believe, to sign up for mail ballot. But for about 95% of the information, it's already pre-populated, which helps increase the completion rates. Obviously, having people enter the same information twice would dramatically decrease the number of people who successfully completed the process. Looking at the features of the tool, here are just some quick highlights. Compatible with mobile and tablet devices. As we're engaging young people online, we absolutely wanted to make sure that our tool and the registration form was accessible however they found it. Increasingly, that is on mobile and tablet devices. We regularly optimize and test the form. One thing that we've done recently, the complete button used to be in red. We actually did some testing and realized that if we put it to green, green means go, it means complete the form, we got higher completion rates. That's one thing that we changed across the platforms. We're always thinking of cool, innovative things we can do to make it better from a user perspective and from a completion perspective. So if you guys have suggestions, please let me know. We regularly update it to reflect current state law requirements. That's for California and all other states. It's fully online in the states where we're integrated, as I talked about earlier, and easily co-branded, and I'm happy to talk about that at the end of the call. So if we can go to the next page. It's available in 13 languages. As Jennie mentioned, though, the California system, I believe, is translated into the 10 VRA languages. So if you're registering in Bengali or Urdu or another language that's not supported by the California system, what it does is automatically track you. So the reason that well, obviously you would want the page translated up front, but the translate button is on the first page also so that as people select a language, if it's not supported by the California system, it will actually track them automatically on the back end, and they will complete the process via the PDF and print, sign, and mail the form at the end. That will still go to the California Secretary of State's website, but through the snail mail system. We're always looking to expand our reach. and bring more languages online. I'm talking to some groups now about possibly adding Hmong, Lao, and Cherokee. I think we're getting a little close to voter registration deadlines this year, so I think that's more of a 2015 project. But if you guys do have any connections to translation resources or organizations, please let me know. We're always happy to have that conversation. Next slide, Doug. Yeah, so also talking about features of the tool, one thing that we think is the biggest value add for third-party organizations is the ability to hold on to the information after you've sent users onto the California Secretary of State system. Obviously, we know that we could all do voter registration by sending a direct link to the site, but we'll lose people. There's no way to gather their names, their emails, their phone numbers to follow up with them later. We know that people turn out to vote when they are contacted by people and organizations close to them, and so there's real value in kind of having that information. And from a funding perspective, obviously it's better to have kind of real data and metrics to be able to show the impact that you've had. So really great feature of Rock the Vote website is our dashboard, next slide Doug, that allows you to see all of this information. So everyone who comes through your instance of the Rock the Vote tool, they're non-personally identifiable sensitive information. That means no social security numbers, no driver's license numbers, but their names, their email addresses, phone numbers, again, all of that is stored in addition to larger kind of at-a-glance data, such as how many people came through your tool in the last week, how many people are men versus women, how many people are of a self-identified ethnicity or race. All information that helps you figure out how you might follow up with them later and get a sense of who you are actually registering. I think more information or another snapshot of what's available is on the next slide here, right. All of this is also downloadable as a CSV file. So that means you can download it, open it in Excel. We recommend you then upload that to whatever management system that you use so that you can be putting these people onto whatever list you have that, for your issue education, advocacy, and GOTV work. Again, I think the real value here is having that so that you can continue to build your own organization's power and make sure that you're looping back with people. So a real value there. Next slide. Yeah, and so the question now is like, okay, so how do I get set up? It's really easy. You can do it online at rockthevote.com. You'll see a link. You can set up a account for yourself in probably about 5 minutes. You can get a tool up and running in short order. Grab the customize things in the back end, grab your embed code, and you are good to go. If you go to the next slide, you also see that we now also allow people to white label our tool. So that means that they can change the look and feel so that it looks like their website. Here are 2 examples. You can change logos, colors. You can make it have your own kind of organization or website aesthetic so that people really feel like they're having a kind of native experience on your website and don't feel like it's just Rock the Vote branded. So if that's something that you're interested in, please let me know. I'm happy to handle all of those requests offline and happy to answer any questions about the tool or the functionality or the integration with the Secretary of State's office while on this call today. So thank you all for having me.
Dominic.
Great. Thank you, Dominic, for sharing that. Great information about the Rock the Vote tool. Our final speaker is Emily Rusch with CALPIRG, and Emily is going to be doing a little screen sharing so we can get that set up.
You're pulling it up, right?
Yes, Doug is pulling it up.
Great.
So Emily is the Executive Director of CALPIRG. She oversees CALPIRG's programs, including statewide field campaigns on college campuses to ensure young voters engage in California's democracy. And CALPIRG, as well as Rock the Vote, are members of Future of California Elections. So Emily, take it away.
That's right. And I get the opportunity right now to just present a toolkit that a number of organizations in the Future of California Elections collaborated on in order to make it easy for other community organizations to get out information about voter registration. So this is the toolkit that I'm presenting. I want to, first of all, just thank Jennie again and the Secretary of State's office for all of their work to update the online voter registration tool. We love the new Cover 2 tool here at CALPIRG. And then Rock the Vote, who we partner with very closely to provide outreach opportunities. This toolkit was created by the Asian Americans Advancing Justice in Los Angeles, ACLU, CALPIRG, the Greenlining Institute, the League of Women Voters, and Rock the Vote. With the help from the staff from the Future of California Elections. And it's really, we're coming from a place of knowing that there are 6 million eligible voters here in California who aren't registered to vote. It's disproportionately young people and people of color that aren't registered, and so we targeted a lot of the tools and messaging that we did to focus particularly on those communities that we know community groups are doing outreach to. So if you want to scroll down, Doug, there's a little introduction. So this toolkit's available on the Future of California Elections website. And there's a little overview that it goes through. But then specifically I want to get to the actual some of the tools that we, or the samples that we created. So as Doug scrolls down, the first, so we created specific samples for how to post online registration on websites, by email blast, using a flyer, by doing phone banking and door knocking, putting information into an organization's newsletter, getting out information about online registration on social media, using ethnic media to reach out to community groups, and then by doing outreach to other community institutions. And so we have samples for all of that outreach here in this toolkit. And it starts by looking at how to add voter registration to your website. We strongly recommend that groups use a button rather than a link to highlight opportunities to register to vote. And the Secretary of State has created their own buttons in the 10 different languages. You can see that on the toolkit, and there are instructions for how to post a button on a website. We also highlight the opportunity to partner with Rock the Vote, which they will create a button that you can use to highlight voter registration opportunities if you decide to partner with them. So that's, and then we even have some ideas in this toolkit for where you might want to post this button on your website. The most important principle to keep in mind is that you want it to be on websites that people actually use. So for example, CALPIRG in our outreach to college campuses, we recommend a set of websites that are often the most frequently used websites on college campuses, and certainly, specifically web pages that are the most frequently used web pages by students so that they really see it. We also include in the toolkit a sample email that groups and organizations or individuals could send out to remind their constituents how to register to vote. We have sample language for a flyer that could be distributed at a meeting. We have language to be used in both either phone banks or if groups are actually doing door knocking. We have a sample newsletter article that community groups could post in their newsletter. We have sample tweets and Facebook posts, including a graphic about how to register to vote, linking to online voter registration. Really easy, again, trying to make it easy as possible for community organizations to present voter registration opportunities to their constituents. And then the specific sample press release and some data that could be used to outreach to either ethnic media or ethnic community groups, specifically to reach some of those underserved communities that aren't registered at very high rates today. And that's, mostly we wanted to just share that we've created this toolkit that we encourage anyone to use. And I don't know if it's Doug or Astrid, if we could maybe show the website where people can access it.
Yes, we could do that, definitely. And I also want to mention that we've added a wall of fame to our website, and that's the area where you could see examples of how other organizations are using the link on their own homepage or within 3 clicks. And Doug just message the link of where that resource can be found. Okay. So this is our website, Future of California Elections, and you'd be able to find the toolkit by clicking the highlighted area that says Community Outreach Toolkit. And additionally, you'll see that we have translated samples of the press release in different languages so that you can forward those to ethnic media. And we'll continue to update those as we get additional languages. Great. Thank you, Emily, for sharing that. So we're at the conclusion of our presentations, and again, I just want to point out these little resources. We want to open it up to question and answers right now from our panel. And I had a couple of questions that did come in.
The conference has been unmuted.
That came in via the chat. And so when you ask your question, I'd like you to go ahead and raise your hand or type in your question via the chat feature. Give your name and your affiliation as you ask your question on the telephone line. So I'm going to go ahead and call out the first question that came in, and that was from Ted Jackson. Ted? Ted, are you still on? Okay, Ted.
Hello? Hello?
Go ahead, Jed.
Okay, great. So this is Ted Jackson from California Foundation for Independent Living Centers. And I'm wondering about linking with the posting entity. So for example, if we wanted to work with the Rock the Vote widget and all of that, could we still be tracked under the Disability Community Tracking link for SB 35?
Hi, Ted. That's something we should talk about with Rock the Vote after the call, because there may be a way to set that up. So let's set up a conference call and talk about that.
Okay, because we are trying to use their widget on our website. I'm doing the website revisions right now, but we're very invested in Cover 2, and we want to be able to be tracked as well.
Right, right, because your organizations are NVRA agencies. Yeah, let's talk more about that.
Okay.
Great. We also had a question that came in from Helen Thomas. Helen?
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, you can hear me? All right.
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Helen.
So I think that my question was answered through the presentation, though, because I know that working with our VAC community here in Santa Cruz, the user friendliness of the systems has been something that has come up on several occasions for those that are utilizing assisted types of devices. And so my question was about, are things being developed in various languages to accommodate those people that are using assisted devices in different languages?
Great. And it was translated. Great. Thank you. Any additional questions? Please go ahead and raise your hand. Okay.
Hey, Dominic, this is Doug Chapin. Let me ask a question that I think folks may have. Typically, once people have registered for the Rock the Vote tool and downloaded it, what's really kind of start to finish for being able to start accepting and tracking voter registrations? Is it really instantaneous? Are you looking at a day or two of delay? Just to give folks a sense for their own planning purposes in the run-up to the election.
You're talking about having the voter information available such that you could reach out to them?
Or even just being able to start accepting and passing through registrations through the tool.
I believe that is instantaneous. Obviously, it takes California Secretary of State's website a little bit to be able to confirm your registration, and so we provide a link and tell people to follow back in a week or two. But from an organization perspective, you should have access to all of that as soon as they're done with the process.
Great, thanks. Kim Alexander?
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Kim Alexander with the California Voter Foundation. Thanks for a really interesting presentation and everyone's great work. I had a question for Jennie about the security and privacy standards that are part of the post function and wondered if you could talk a little bit more about what's required of groups that engage in that process in terms of protecting security and privacy issues.
Sure. Our memorandum of agreement requires groups to get opt-in consent from people before they start the process. So that is, if groups like Rock the Vote are going to keep some of that information, they do that on an opt-in basis. So they're asking people if they want to set reminders to vote, and then that allows Rock the Vote to keep their email and their name and send them follow-up emails. On the security side, we use 2 API keys, and so there's some security that has to be set up behind that, but it is an API key system. They've got to use SSL, and I'm not a tech person, so I'm probably not saying this properly, but there are some standards they have to meet on the security side to make sure that when the data comes over, it's secure, and that we can also authenticate them as an authorized posting entity before we accept the data in. And we also we get the specific IP addresses that they're going to be using so that we essentially open up just those IP addresses. And again, that's a security measure to make sure that we're only receiving data from an authorized posting entity.
Thanks.
Okay, next, Hillary O'Connor. Hillary, are you still on?
I am.
Great, go ahead.
Oh, it's for tracking. I know that when we do outreach events, we'd like to be able to do online registrations, but we can't track it to see how effective our outreach events are. Is there anything that is planning to be set up for counties so that they would be able to track their online registration during outreach?
So one of the things, this is Jennie with Secretary of State's office, one of the things we're going to do this coming fall is we're going to use Google Analytics. So for the counties that add have or add the register to vote button or have links on your website that are sending people over to online registration, we're going to run Google Analytics after the voter registration deadline and see how each county did, see how many hits that you sent over, how many people you sent over to register to vote. And that was at the request of San Mateo County a couple of weeks ago, so we're going to do that this year. And yes, it's something we should look at for the future in terms of integrating it more into how we do tracking officially in the California online voter registration system. But for right now, we're going to use Google Analytics.
Yes, thank you, Jennie, and I appreciate you taking care of that for us. I thought maybe everybody else could benefit from it as well. I appreciate it.
And Jan Carwin?
Yes, hello. I actually typed my question, which is, can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, what documents are required to register online? Does a person need a driver's license and or social security number?
So this is Jennie with Secretary of State's office. In California, you do not need, so for our online voter registration system, you do not need to have a driver's license or social security number. In some other states that have online voter registration, while it's not required to register to vote in general under the federal law, the online system actually prevents people from proceeding unless they've got one of those identifiers. So in California, the way it works is if you have a driver's license and a social security number, then we can run that check against the Department of Motor Vehicles database and pull the electronic signature so that the whole process can be online. We don't, however, prevent people from going through the online system if they don't have that. So that means you can register online and submit your entire application online. What will happen, though, is that because we can't get that electronic signature, you're going to get a PDF form to print at the end of the process that you can sign and mail to your county elections office. And another thing about California that's different is we have an existing state law that was in existence prior to online voter registration that puts a duty on the county elections official to follow up with voters if they submit an incomplete application. So what that means for online registration is that all those electronic applications they get daily through the cover system that don't have a signature with them, that has the county elections official generating an automatic mailing to those folks. And there is some discretion to wait a couple of days and see if the voter sends in the PDF with their signature. But essentially, counties are sending a mailing to each of those voters that don't have a signature with their electronic application to gather that signature. And the way we set up the policy in California is that you can actually do this right up until midnight on the voter registration deadline, and then submit your signature later, after the registration deadline all the way up until Election Day. So it's a really voter-friendly process here in California.
Thank you very much. That was a very complete answer.
Great. We have another question from Helen Thomas.
Thank you. This is kind of piggybacking on the previous question about tracking. So are we also, I know an earlier question was given about partnering with the Rock the Vote button, but in terms of the electronic voter registration in general, are we taking into consideration the ability to track our NVR agencies through that process as well that are working with our counties? I work with Santa Cruz County, sorry.
Yeah, we are. This is Jennie again with Secretary of State's office. We are, and this redesigned system is actually set up so that we have a special automatic reporting tool that gives us it gives us a report on demand, but we generate it and publish it on the website monthly, and that tells us how many online registrations are being generated by our different types of NVRA agencies, and there are 13 or 14 different types, and we get a county by county report that tells us how many voter registrations got generated by our new health benefit exchange in Santa Cruz County, how many got generated by WIC and social service agencies, how many by independent living centers. And so it's a statewide report that gets broken down by county, and the way that works is that we've created a unique URL for each type, and we've asked each of those agencies to update the links on their website so that they're not just linking to registertovote.ca.gov, they're linking to a URL that has an extension on it so that people come through a special portal from that NVRA agency website into COVR so that we can track. And so that data is in the aggregate. It's certainly not giving a list of people who registered by those agencies because that's confidential.
Right. But the other piece is that we're as of last year, right, we're being requested at the county level to kind of break out each of those types of NVR agencies in our monthly reporting, but it sounds like it's being developed to kind of just cover in general one WIC agency, but Santa Cruz County may have 4 different sites, so we break it down by site, but when they're going on to online registry, it doesn't sound like that's happening.
That's right, because it's not required under the state law to do it for online registrations. We just took the extra step to do it. And so just for everyone else who's listening, we have a federal reporting requirement and some state law reporting requirements for National Voter Registration Act, government agencies and their contractors. And we have a duty to report, and up to now it's been a paper-based voter registration system and a paper-based reporting system. So that system of tracking and reporting still exists on paper and will continue to exist because a lot of people still register on paper. But on top of that, we decided we want to make sure these agencies are getting credit and encourage them to send people to the online system because it's better for the voter to register online. It's faster and easier, so that we could track that and give those agencies credit for that. We weren't able to get down to the level of granularity of each little office in every little county,
right.
But we do have it at the level of type, and you'll see that on our website, and then by county so that you get a general idea of how you're doing in your county.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Any final questions from the audience? Great. I don't see any more questions, but I did have one for you, Jennie. You mentioned as part of your presentation that some of the work that's coming for 2015 and 16 as part of the VoteCal is a new online voter registration website. Can you tell us a little bit about what features you're looking to include in that one? I know you mentioned some during the answers, but could you let us know a little bit about what's coming?
Sure. I mean, VoteCal is going to, the website that's being built for online voter registration in VoteCal is fully using the specs and the design documents that we use and all the documentation that we created from creating the redesigned COVR website. So their goal and their their charge, and they're under contract to do this, is to build what we have already. So build everything that we have already in terms of accessibility, all the languages, the usability of it, and then on top of that, the VoteCal contract calls for additional things like look up your voter registration status, look up the status of your ballot, look up your polling place, and things like that. And so that's going to be a single portal where all of that is available. I don't have more detail on that, and it's almost the subject of a separate webinar. But if people are interested, we certainly have a website on the Secretary of State's website that is specifically dedicated to VoteCal, and there's some documentation and information there about what is coming in 2015-16.
Great. It's good to know that California online voter registration will just continue to get better for our state. So I'm going to start wrapping up. And again, the goal of this webinar was to provide community organizations and everyone the opportunity to see what the tool was like, what was back, and what are the options that you have. And so I hope all of you have been encouraged a little bit to perhaps consider adding online voter registration to your website and encouraging others to do so, and also promoting voter registration before the October 20th deadline. Can I get a couple of yeses of people that think that they're going to start using the tool more? Yeses on the line?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So just a few closing points. So the cover toolkit that Emily went over is available for you to make your own, so please go ahead and use it. It's available on the cover website, the link that you see on your screen. As Emily mentioned, you're welcome to cut and paste the newsletter, the press release, the Twitter messages provided to help get the word out that online voter registration is ready and available today for people to register. We also have our Wall of Fame, and so if you would like to be included and get recognition that you're doing this work, please go ahead and contact us through our Wall of Fame, and we'll be happy to add you. And then finally, just a quick announcement. The next event for Future of California Elections is going to be a vote-by-mail panel. It will be in Sacramento, in-person event on October 14th at the UC Sacramento Center there. And lunch will be provided. So if those that are in town, we'd love to see you then. Keep an eye out. We'll send a flyer. And also, in addition to our work on the vote by mail, we're going to be putting together another toolkit that will have communications to help voters cast a successful vote by mail ballot. So finally, I just want to say thank you to our panel for sharing their expertise today. Thank you to all of our participants. We know all of you have busy schedules, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us. Thank you for all the hard work you do to strengthen California's democracy. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Please stand by.